We live in an era where the pursuit of pleasure has become a priority, almost an obsession. But is this relentless pursuit of immediate gratification actually destroying our lives? Aldous Huxley warned us about this. In his work, he not only described a society controlled by tyrannical governments, but something much more subtle and dangerous: pleasure. Modern slavery doesn't occur through chains or physical oppression, but through distraction and mental conditioning that makes us believe we are free, while, in reality, we are slaves to this culture of pleasure. What happens when pleasure, instead of liberating us, imprisons us? Have you ever stopped to think about how this relentless pursuit of artificial happiness might be undermining your freedom and ability to make real choices? What if all this quick gratification, from a like on social media to that daily dose of entertainment, is merely distracting you from your true essence and autonomy? It's time to discover how what seemed like freedom may be turning into your greatest prison. Many believe we are free, but this freedom is often an illusion. Aldous Huxley argues that, in reality, we are trapped by pleasurable distractions, such as constant entertainment and mind-altering substances. This pursuit of pleasure, continually fueled by modern society, conceals the invisible chains that control us. Those who don't question what they consume end up blind to their own conditioning, believing they are in control. Like a fish unaware of the water surrounding it, people adapt to the pleasures offered and stop seeking something greater. We live in an era where the pursuit of pleasure has become a priority, almost an obsession. But is this relentless pursuit of immediate gratification actually destroying our lives? Aldous Huxley warned us about this. In his work, he not only described a society controlled by tyrannical governments, but something much more subtle and dangerous: pleasure. Modern slavery doesn't occur through chains or physical oppression, but through distraction and mental conditioning that makes us believe we are free, while, in reality, we are slaves to this culture of pleasure. What happens when pleasure, instead of liberating us, imprisons us? Have you ever stopped to think about how this relentless pursuit of artificial happiness might be undermining your freedom and ability to make real choices? What if all this quick gratification, from a like on social media to that daily dose of entertainment, is merely distracting you from your true essence and autonomy? It's time to discover how what seemed like freedom may be turning into your greatest prison. Many believe we are free, but this freedom is often an illusion. Aldous Huxley argues that, in reality, we are trapped by pleasurable distractions, such as constant entertainment and mind-altering substances. This pursuit of pleasure, continually fueled by modern society, conceals the invisible chains that control us. Those who don't question what they consume end up blind to their own conditioning, believing they are in control. Like a fish unaware of the water surrounding it, people adapt to the pleasures offered and stop seeking something greater. Huxley saw this modern form of slavery as something subtle, different from the visible chains of the past. Instead of direct imposition, servitude happens through the culture of pleasure, a constant offering of artificial happiness. The person is so focused on their daily pleasures that they don't realize the loss of freedom. Entertainment, social media, and promises of instant happiness through consumption become effective tools of control. Everything is available for consumption, but the cost is mental and emotional autonomy. This dynamic creates a form of emotional slavery. There is no need for physical prisons when there is a silent addiction that ties the individual to their own pleasure. To break this cycle, it would require a conscious effort to stop and reflect on the impact of this pleasure on life. However, many don't even realize they are trapped, fed by what gives them instant gratification. And so, society remains functional, even as individuals lose the ability to exercise true freedom. Although many think we live far from the dystopias described by George Orwell, Aldous Huxley's work perhaps offers an even more relevant vision. In 1984, Orwell warned us about a society controlled by oppression and surveillance, where fear ruled. But in Brave New World, the control is much subtler. People are kept under domination through distraction and the promise of pleasure. Instead of fearing the state, they are so busy seeking satisfaction that they do not question their lack of freedom. Social control, then, doesn't need to be imposed by force. The comparison between the two authors invites us to reflect on our own modern society. While Orwell spoke of explicit censorship, Huxley anticipated a world where people would be so distracted by entertainment and immediate pleasure that they would see no need to resist. And indeed, today we find ourselves surrounded by an overdose of stimuli, from social networks to series. Everything is accessible at the click of a button. The need to be entertained at all times distances us from any critical reflection on our reality. And so, mental conditioning becomes even more effective. There are no protests because there is no perception of oppression. Individuals believe they are happy, but this artificial happiness is built on the foundation of constant distraction. Few ask themselves, at what cost are we living this supposed freedom? Huxley and Orwell leave us, then, with an important lesson. The loss of freedom, whether by fear or by pleasure, can be equally devastating. Aldous Huxley warns us of a more sophisticated form of control: domination through pleasure. Instead of using force, elites could manipulate the masses by offering constant doses of entertainment and substances that provide immediate pleasure. Drugs, shows, and even the apps we use are modern ways of keeping people distracted. The individual, absorbed in this relentless pursuit of pleasure, loses interest in questioning the system or seeking a deeper purpose. It's a silent trap, but incredibly effective. This dynamic of control through pleasure is deeply rooted in modern society. The pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of suffering shape decisions and behaviors, often without people realizing it. Think about social networks, where with every like or new notification, there is a sense of instant gratification. Gradually, the mind is conditioned to always want more, and social criticism or deep reflection becomes secondary. Pleasure turns into a comfortable prison, where freedom is sacrificed without the individual feeling the chains. In the long term, this pursuit of artificial happiness results in an apathetic society. People do not rebel against the system because they are satisfied with the distractions they receive. It's the modern version of bread and circuses, where entertainment and immediate pleasure are enough to maintain order. To break this cycle, it would require people to reassess their priorities, understanding that true freedom demands sacrifices and the rejection of this culture of pleasure. But are we all willing to abandon this comfort zone? F. Skinner's experiments with rats show how behavior can be shaped by positive and negative reinforcements, a powerful metaphor for modern society. Skinner found that by associating pleasurable stimuli with certain actions, the rats quickly conditioned themselves to repeat the behavior that brought them rewards. This principle is frighteningly similar to what we see in the real world, where people are shaped by constant gratifications, such as consuming digital content or drugs that offer immediate pleasure. Just like the rats, humans can also be easily conditioned. In our case, positive reinforcements come from small daily rewards, a notification on the phone, a like on social media, or the sense of relief when consuming a product. Each of these stimuli strengthens mental and emotional conditioning, trapping the individual in a cycle of pleasure-seeking and avoidance of anything that might generate discomfort. Thus, social control is exercised not through direct repression, but through the manipulation of desires and rewards. The parallel between Skinner's experiments and the modern world raises a crucial question. To what extent are we being manipulated without realizing it? The distractions and pleasures offered by modern society can be compared to a social laboratory, where behaviors are shaped not for individual well-being, but to maintain the status quo. Escaping this cycle requires a consciousness-raising effort, an active endeavor to understand the mechanisms that trap us and, above all, resist the emotional and mental conditioning imposed on us. Today, what Huxley predicted manifests itself clearly in our society, especially with the advance of technology and unlimited access to distractions. Addiction to smartphones, social networks, pornography, and even legal drugs like antidepressants are evidence of how pleasure is used as a tool of control. People are so absorbed in these activities that they hardly find time or energy to question the system surrounding them. The pursuit of immediate pleasure ends up being more important than personal freedom or long-term well-being. Technology, specifically, is a living example of how social conditioning works in practice. Social networks offer us an endless cycle of visual stimuli and interactions that, over time, become addictive. With every swipe, a new dose of pleasure is released, similar to the effect Skinner observed in his experiments with rats. The impact of pleasure on an individual's life goes far beyond entertainment. It shapes behaviors, thoughts, and even the most intimate desires. And meanwhile, social control happens silently, yet deeply. The question that remains is, to what extent are we willing to sacrifice our freedom for immediate gratification? It's easy to get lost in the sea of stimuli offered by modern society. But if we truly want to be free, it is essential to start questioning these addictions and redirect our focus to what really matters. Resistance to this control begins when we reflect on the impact that pleasure and its relentless pursuit have on our lives. And this reflection is the first step to breaking free from the modern slavery that Huxley so warned us about. Now that you understand how the pursuit of pleasure can be a form of modern slavery, the question that remains is, what are you going to do about it? Will you continue to be led by the daily distractions that trap you, or will you take control of your life? True freedom does not come from instant gratification, but from the ability to make conscious decisions, to resist the mental conditioning imposed by society. Are you really living freely? Or just surviving in a comfortable and controlled routine? Reflect on your choices, on the impact of pleasure in your life, and ask yourself, how far am I willing to sacrifice my well-being and freedom for fleeting moments of satisfaction? If you are ready to change, the first step is simple. Start questioning. Question what you consume, question your habits, and most importantly, question what makes you happy. And remember, the change starts now. To continue learning about this and other essential topics for your freedom, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Don't let the system trap you without you realizing it.